It is June 1812. Napoleon Bonaparte commands the largest army ever assembled in European history, 600,000 soldiers, the most brilliant military mind of his era, and he is about to make the single worst decision of his life. He had no GPS, no satellite imagery, no real-time weather alerts. But what if he did?
Perfect! Everything is going exactly according to plan.
The laboratory has been on fire for 11 minutes. This was not in the plan. I checked. There is no plan.
Dox, my friend, chaos is the plan.
That is not what plan means.
Welcome, welcome, welcome to Chronix Lab, the only place in the universe where we break the laws of physics and fire safety regulations simultaneously. I'm Professor Chronix.
And I am DOX. I manage the damage.
Today's experiment is magnificent. We are going to travel back to 1812, hand Napoleon Bonaparte a fully charged smartphone with Google Maps, and watch history completely fall apart.
Or dramatically improve. The data is genuinely ambiguous.
That's why we're going to find out.
Calibration was not completed. This is dangerous.
To understand why Google Maps would have changed everything, you first need to understand just how catastrophically bad Napoleon's maps actually were. In 1812, European cartography was optimistic. Russian maps available to Napoleon showed Moscow as roughly 3 weeks of marching from the Polish border. The reality? 6 to 8 weeks, depending on weather, terrain, and whether your supply wagons hadn't sunk into the mud.
Look at this, look! They thought Moscow was basically next door.
The margin of error on this map is approximately 340 kilometers. That is not a map. That is a suggestion.
A very expensive suggestion. 600,000 men marched on this suggestion.
Napoleon's invasion plan relied on a single assumption, that Russia would stand and fight. He expected one decisive battle, like Austerlitz, like Jena, where he'd crush the Russian army and dictate terms. Instead, Russia did something Napoleon's maps couldn't predict. They retreated, and retreated, and retreated, burning everything behind them, every village, every grain store, every road marker. By the time Napoleon reached Moscow in September, 2 months late, with a third of his army already dead from disease, heat, and starvation, the city was empty. And then the Russians burned it.
They burned their own capital city, just to deny him shelter.
Scorched earth strategy, documented, effective, brutal.
So, 600,000 soldiers, 3 months of marching, and Napoleon arrives to find a bonfire, which is exactly when we give him Google Maps.
Let's rewind to June 24, 1812. Napoleon's Grande Armée crosses the Niemen River into Russian territory, and this time, he has Google Maps. First notification, arrival time to Moscow. Google Maps calculates the fastest route, 1,200 kilometers. Estimated travel time, 43 days on foot, accounting for an army of 600,000.
Oh, look at this! Turn-by-turn directions. In 400 meters, turn left to avoid the Vilia River marshlands.
The historical army spent 9 days attempting to cross those marshlands. 17,000 casualties.
9 days! Gone! Just gone! With one left turn.
But navigation is just the beginning. 3 days into the march, the real game changer appears.
Severe weather warning. Temperature to drop from 35 degrees to -15 within 60 days. Pack accordingly.
In the original timeline, the French army arrived in Russia in summer uniforms. Winter killed more soldiers than Russian bullets.
With a weather forecast, Napoleon's supply chain transforms completely. Instead of light summer equipment, the army carries winter gear. Instead of assuming a quick campaign, Napoleon plans for 6 months.
And then, the most beautiful notification of all.
Google Maps' traffic layer, adapted for 1812, would show troop movements. The moment the Russian army begins its retreat, Napoleon sees it in real time.
Heavy congestion on the Smolensk road. Russian forces withdrawing northeast. Alternative route suggested.
He would know within hours what took him weeks to discover historically.
This is where everything changes. Napoleon's entire strategic failure in 1812 was information delay. By the time he understood Russian intentions, it was too late to adapt. Google Maps doesn't just give him directions, it gives him intelligence. At Smolensk, August 1812. In real history, the Russians escaped and Napoleon won a Pyrrhic victory. Burning city, no decisive result. In our timeline, Google Maps predicted the Russian evacuation route 4 hours early. Napoleon flanks them perfectly.
Estimated outcome, Russian army sustains 40,000 casualties, unable to continue organized retreat.
And that is how you win a war with turn-by-turn directions.
There is, however, a significant problem.
There's always a problem, isn't there?
Napoleon takes Moscow. The city isn't burned. Tsar Alexander is defeated militarily, and Napoleon wins, sort of.
Sort of?
He wins the war. He does not win the peace.
Here's what Google Maps couldn't tell Napoleon: Russia's true size. Yes, the app would show the scale accurately, but no map, digital or otherwise, can prepare a human brain for occupying 1/6 of the Earth's landmass with an army that's already exhausted.
How is it still Russia? I've been zooming out for 30 seconds. It's still Russia.
Russia is 17.1 million square kilometers. France is 551,000. You could fit 31 Frances inside Russia.
31.
Even with Moscow captured, Alexander refuses to negotiate, because Russia doesn't need Moscow the way France needs Paris. The Tsar simply moves his government east, further than any Western European army has ever marched, and waits. And here's the second thing Google Maps reveals. Too late. The supply line.
Warning. Supply route compromised. Estimated resupply time, 89 days. Current supplies, 12 days.
A logistical impossibility that Google Maps calculates instantly. Napoleon is 2,400 kilometers from his supply base. His army cannot be fed.
And so Napoleon faces the same brutal reality, just slightly later. He must retreat. The difference is, this time he retreats in October, not December, with winter gear, with a functioning army. In real history, the retreat from Moscow killed 400,000 men. In our timeline, Napoleon retreats with roughly 280,000 survivors, defeated but not destroyed.
So he loses, but survives, with half his army.
Correct, which means 1813 looks very different. No catastrophic manpower shortage, no desperate conscription of teenagers, no coalition sensing total weakness.
He doesn't abdicate. He keeps fighting, which means
The Battle of Leipzig likely does not occur, or occurs with different odds. The history of Europe from 1813 onward becomes genuinely unpredictable.
No Waterloo, possibly no Congress of Vienna. The entire map of Europe, redrawn. The nation-states we consider permanent. Many of them exist because Napoleon lost in Russia. Take that loss away, and the 19th century looks nothing like we know.
one smartphone, one campaign, and the entire modern world, potentially unrecognizable.
That is the correct summary, yes.
So here's what we learned today. Napoleon's catastrophe in Russia wasn't about courage or strategy or even numbers. It was about information. He was operating blind in a country so vast it broke every mental model he had.
Google Maps would have provided accurate distance data, weather forecasting, real-time route optimization, and supply chain calculations. 4 informational advantages, each one independently significant.
Combined, he probably doesn't get destroyed in Russia. He probably doesn't fall in 1814, which means Europe gets maybe another decade of Napoleonic wars, different borders, different alliances.
And a 19th century that produces an entirely different 20th century.
Which raises the real question. Right now, in your life, what decisions are you making with bad maps? What campaigns are you marching into with incomplete information, wrong distances, and no weather forecast?
That was unexpectedly philosophical.
I have layers, Docs.
You have coffee stains. That is not the same thing.
If you want to see what happens when we give Julius Caesar a smartphone, or ask what Europe looks like if the Black Death never happened, hit subscribe. We run these experiments every week. The time machine is usually functional.
It is currently at 34% functionality.
Subscribe anyway. See you in the next one.
Chronix Lab, where history comes to be questioned.